In this lesson, we're going to be adding a title block to the bottom of our drawings, and then we're going to talk for about a minute just to conclude the entire course. So with regards to title blocks, I did mention them earlier on in the course, and I did say that usually when we are within an office structure, there is a template that is always used that is prepared with a logo and with all the relevant information that we need to add to these type of drawings. But when we're doing a design presentation, perhaps we're just going to the client and we're showing him this on a smaller piece of paper, and we just want to basically convey the design and get some feedback from it. We don't need to go the full route of showing a very complicated title block that looks like a municipality or a council submission. So for the title blocks, since this is a course about presentation, the main thing that I want to talk about is the fact that your title block is always going to form part of your total composition within your presentation. That means that since we were so careful about how we place color, tones, and focus on the plan, the last thing you want to come in and do and basically do to your drawing is to just come in and obliterate it with a very heavy, big and loud title block. For example, if the company color was blue and they had a screaming yellow logo, you wouldn't want to go and put that on the drawing to take away all of that hard work that you've gone to put into the drawing itself. So think of the title block a little bit as a frame to a painting. You do want the frame to enhance the painting. You don't want to take focus away from it. So when you want to make a title block for your drawing, the one thing you can do is you can add it to a new group. So we can put that group right at the top. We can call it title block. And over here there will be mostly information that is based on the drawing, on the company that is drawing it, and perhaps things like the date can also be added into this. So the first thing that I would do to prepare a title block is pretty much in the same route as we did when we started our setting out of guides. I would open up the ruler and I would decide how many millimeters I need at the bottom, and I would basically slide in a guide that would give me the position for how much space I want the title block to use. Now also remember that if you're setting out something on a large piece of paper and you do a title block that is covering edge to edge, you may not be able to print it out edge to edge unless you come in later and crop your paper down from, let's say, an oversized A1 to a standard A1. So think about that when you do your title block. You may just want to leave a white edge and just have plain black text. That may actually be the best answer in some cases. So what you can do is you can, for example, either add a entire tone of color that can be a light gray or anything else that doesn't really distract from your drawing, or you can come in and draw a line. Let's say we want a 5-pixel wide line and we want it to be the same color as this, so we eyedropper that, and we basically just want to draw a line from there to there, snap it onto the grid, and we can now come in and add text. So you can choose a font that is relevant to your project or your company, or you can even use the I will start off with standard Arial, even though that is not the most exciting text to use, and then you would just come in and add the text that you would want to include. So for example, we would want to call this house something, so let's give it a name. I'm going to be calling it, what shall we call it? We can call it the Coast Hideaway. If I can get that spelling right. So the one thing with names is that you don't want to add a name which is too big that's going to distract your drawing. I've seen presentations done by people where we have a name that is this big, and the first thing that you see when you come into the room is you see this tiny piece of paper right at the end and you see this massive name at the bottom. That is definitely not what you want to do. You want to try and keep your names as subtle as possible, and basically remember that rule of focus first on what's most important and everything else then comes stacked behind that. What you can also do is you can look at the size that your other text is on the page, so you can come in and have a look at how that section has been written, and you can start to create text that matches the existing text on the drawing. Generally that's not a bad idea, so you do create some homogeneity between the different elements that you have on the page. So after that, you can then just start copying that text down. You can either copy it downwards, horizontally, and basically fill up your space the way you want to. For example, we could add something like 1st of January, 2015, whatever date it may be. And this can either be below, it can be next to it, it can be much smaller than the name of the building, and we can place that even underneath this text here if we want to add a section with some more details. So all I really wanted to show with the elements of the title block is that you would fill it up in a way that doesn't destroy the layout of your building or your presentation in its entirety. So sometimes the best title blocks are just the ones that absolutely disappear and they don't really announce themselves too loudly. So what I would like to do now is just show you how you can easily copy a title block from page to page. So one thing that I could do now is I could add a white background underneath this title block, and I will just do so by adding a new layer, shifting it or sliding it down to the bottom of that stack, and then creating a plain white background to it. And then what you can do is you can just close down that entire layer. When you move your layers around on your page, remember as well that you have the option between the selection of a layer and a group. So in this case, you can choose the group itself, and you can now take that entire block or that entire group of layers and you can shift it over to your other drawing. And basically that you can then just slide and snap into the bottom corner. Then you can decide whether you want to still have that white underlay. You can see what works best. But basically the most important thing is that you do have a continuous title block that is repeated on all your pages. You don't want to have one running vertically, you don't want to have a second one running horizontally and so forth. So you want to keep that the same. And also it can be a good idea to start deleting some of the information that is happening below. For example, I would want to trim off these edges to these contours, and I would do that exactly the same way that we trimmed them when we did this about 2 or 3 lessons ago. So that pretty much concludes the small talk about the title blocks. Again, do it with as little influence visually to your presentation as possible. Just make sure that you get the bare essentials in there. So just to wrap up the entire course, really, since this is the last lesson, I have already done a lot of speaking about the type of designs and the design process that you would go through. But what I just want to bring your attention back to is some of the words that were in that original presentation, and that is to always think about conveying the story and conveying the logic. A good presentation will do both equally, and you will be able to look at a set of plans and you will start to see a story unraveling. If you even want to write down a few words as to what the narrative or the concept is of your building, then do so. Write down what it is like to live and wake up in a villa like this, and just add a few words or something that will really spark the imagination, because architecture at the end of the day is just an object. It's a little bit like an iPhone. It's just a block of metal and glass, but what really makes it special is how it's used and what story it can tell and how it can improve your life through the use. So again, when it comes to presentations, don't just think that the architecture itself, that the walls and the glass are going to impress people. What's going to impress them is what lifestyle it can give them and how that lifestyle will change their entire state of being. So if you can communicate that through a set of plans and drawings and 3D images, then that is really hitting home run. It's getting that story converted through a set of drawings, diagrams in the simplest way possible. So the other one about conveying the logic is that you want to make your plans simple enough so that that logic can be visible. You want to have elements like your grid lines, your columns, you want to have all of this visible so that people are not really guessing whether this building can actually stand up. They're not really guessing whether it's possible to build it. You show a sense of structural logic of how your spaces are all interconnected, and basically even the logic of saying that the tonality of the different floor levels is going to get lighter the higher we go and is going to be slightly darker when we step down. And we are using that same logic as we go from a higher land area to a much lower land area down here by the ocean. So that same logic is being translated and used throughout the entire drawing. So the last words that were in that original presentation was convey it with simplicity and convey it with intent. So simplicity, I don't stop talking about simplicity because I started my architectural career by choosing to do the most complicated things all the time, and that never really got me to first place as quickly as once I had learned to really start stripping away all of the details and really finding those essential nuggets of gold within all the mishmash of information that there is out there that you want to convey. So lastly, when you convey with intent, it means that everything you do for a reason. So when you add a color to your plans, do so for a reason. Make sure that every line and every indication or symbol that you use is there to tell and add to that story and add to the logic, and not just be there so that it can fill up some white space. Remember that the less you do, the more opportunity there is for those things that really count to shine through your drawing and not actually have just a gray, complete collage of information that people are trying to decipher. So good luck with your presentations, good luck with your work. Always remember that creativity and design comes first, and if you can get that story, get that logic nailed, then your presentation is definitely going to come out on top. So again, good luck. I hope your work really turns out great, and do your best in continuing in the direction that you're going by looking forward and doing all of the extra work that you're doing in terms of educating yourself. That is really the number one key. So good luck with all of that, and all the best.